All right, today we're going to journey back in time to explore the Vedic period. It's a foundational, thousand-year stretch in Indian history. But here's the thing, it wasn't just one long, unchanging period. As we're about to see, it was really a tale of two completely different ages. One defined by a nomadic life, and the other, well, that one was forged by a single piece of technology that changed literally everything.
Sounds kind of impossible, right? We'll get this. There are passages in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest of all the Vedic texts, that describe a solar eclipse with such crazy precision that some scientists have actually been able to put a date on it. It's just an incredible example of how this ancient world we're about to dive into can sometimes connect with modern science in ways you just never expect.
So what exactly are these Vedas? Well, they're pretty much the bedrock of this entire period. The word Veda itself literally means knowledge in Sanskrit, which makes perfect sense. They're how we know almost everything about this ancient civilization, what they believed, their rituals, their whole way of life.
Okay, so there are four main Vedas, and you can almost think of them as a complete toolkit for life back then. It all kicks off with the Rig Veda, the oldest and most important one, which is full of hymns to the gods. Then the Sama Veda kind of sets those hymns to music. The Yajur Veda is like the instruction manual for all the rituals. And the Atharva Veda? That's more like a book of spells and charms for everyday problems.
What's really fascinating is how all this knowledge was passed on. It's basically split into two categories. On one hand, you have Shruti, which means that which is heard. This is considered pure divine stuff, the core Vedas, passed down orally, word for centuries. Just imagine that. On the other hand, you have Smrti, or that which is remembered. This includes the epic stories and law books written by human sages who were inspired by that divine knowledge. So let's dive into that first half of the era, the Early Vedic period. Picture a world of semi-nomadic tribes, a life defined by rivers, by cattle, and by a social order that was actually pretty flexible. So where were these people living? They were mostly centered in a region they called the Sapta Sindhu, the land of 7 rivers. This map here gives you a great visual. It's this area in northwestern India, full of fertile river valleys. I mean, it was the perfect landscape for their pastoral lifestyle. You know, life back then was so different from what came later. Society was pastoral, which means your wealth wasn't about gold, it was about how many cows you had. The family was led by a patriarch, the Grihapati. But here's the crucial part. Social divisions were based on your job, not the family you were born into. Women also held a pretty respectable position. Some even composed Vedic hymns themselves. And their worship, it was all tied to nature, focused on gods like Indra, the god of thunder, and Agni, the god of fire. But then, right around 1000 BCE, everything, and I mean everything, started to change. A single technological breakthrough was about to completely reshape their world. It all came down to the introduction of iron. Just look at these tools: iron axes, plowshares, sickles. See, before this, they were working with softer metals like copper and bronze. Iron was different. It was harder, it was way more durable, and it could hold a much sharper edge. It was, and I'm not exaggerating here, a total game changer. It might just look like simple metal to us now, right? But this one innovation, it didn't just create better tools. It literally forged an entirely new civilization from the ground up. So check out this incredible domino effect. First, the iron axe. Suddenly, you can clear these super dense forests that were impossible to get through before. That leads to step 2, migration. People start moving into the really fertile Gangetic plains. And with the iron plow, they can start large-scale farming, creating food surpluses for the very first time. And that surplus, it's the engine for everything that followed. Huge kingdoms, cities, and all sorts of new jobs. And all of that brings us to the second age, the later Vedic period. This is the new society that grew out of that iron revolution, a world that was way more settled, way more complex, and yeah, a lot more rigid. And the biggest, most fundamental change was social. That old, flexible system? Gone. In its place, a rigid, hereditary hierarchy called the Varna system popped up. You had the Brahmins, the priests, at the top, then the Kshatriyas, the warriors. Below them were the Vaishyas, the merchants and farmers, and at the bottom, the Shudras, the laborers. From that point on, your birth decided your entire life. Just listen to this quote from the earlier Rig Veda. It shows you exactly what was lost. I am a poet, my father is a physician, and my mother grinds corn on stone. Being of the same family, we are engaged in different professions. See that? One family, all these different jobs.
That kind of freedom, that social mobility, that's what vanished in the later Vedic age. And this table here, it just lays it all out, plain and simple. Look at society. Women's status drops, and the caste system locks in. The economy, it shifts from being about cattle to being all about land. And even religion, the old nature gods make way for new deities like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, with way more complicated rituals. I mean, every single part of life was transformed. This new, more structured society also came with a new roadmap for an ideal life, divided into 4 stages, or ashramas. You'd start out as a student, brahmacharya. Then you'd become a householder, grihastha, with a family and a job. After that, you would retire to the forest as a vanaprastha. And finally, you'd renounce all worldly things as a sannyasa. So this period of massive change didn't just disappear into history. No, it left behind this incredible cultural and philosophical legacy, captured in stories and ideas that have stuck around for thousands of years. And right at the heart of it all are 2 of the longest epic poems ever written, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Now, these aren't just simple stories. They are huge, sprawling narratives that are more like rich tapestries, weaving together the entire social, political, and moral world of the time. And woven deep inside these epics, especially in the famous Bhagavad Gita, are 2 ideas that are still so powerful today. First, there's dharma, this idea of your duty, your righteous path in life. And then there's karma, the simple but profound idea that every action has a consequence. All of this philosophical thinking eventually gave us the Upanishads. Now, these are later texts that go beyond just rituals. They start asking the really big questions about reality itself, digging into huge concepts like karma, moksha, which is salvation or freedom from the cycle of rebirth, and maya, the idea that the world we see might just be an illusion. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. The Vedic age officially ended more than 2,500 years ago. But from the word karma being used all over the world to the epic heroes we still know today, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Just how much of our modern world was actually forged way back in this ancient age.